as a community, we look at the word trauma as one of those uh, hush hush words.
Coming fall 2023.
It's a stigma around that word. Like nobody wants to be labeled or be classified under that.
Angela Marie Publishing proudly presents.
If you look at it, trauma is merely just being exposed or voluntarily or involuntarily to a situation that changes your outlook.
Sit in Your Shit, a 30-day guided journal for processing a crisis.
You have become accustomed and immune to your own shit.
Written by Miss Devin Elise, certified life coach and founder of Lifted KC.
Because mental health doesn't care where you are, what you're doing, who you are. It's going to kick in when it want to kick in.
Fall 2023. Sit in Your Shit.
When it finds its place to trigger you, boom, you're triggered. If you don't deal with the trauma, you're going to constantly be triggered.
The highly anticipated guided journal from Kansas City's own Devin Elise.
And one of the things that I'm learning in my associates with this healing is to be aware and to sit in my shit.
For more information, visit AngelaMariePublishing.com.
When I feel something, I sit there and figure it out. What am I feeling? Why am I feeling? Because when I can identify it, the next go round, I can prevent it before it comes.
Sit in Your Shit. Pre-orders available now.
Let me show you what I can do.
The blacked out couch.
JB is off the chain.
JB, I need you to go here. I need you to heal. You need some healing, friend.
JB is off the chain. Make sure we don't bring him on the stage tonight. He seems real
Mm-mm.
amped today.
He
He ought to
cocked
sit
and
in the
loaded,
audience.
baby. He is cocked and loaded.
Yes.
This
Yes.
other little baby, he been crying since he got
Oh
here.
my gosh.
I'm gonna mute until we actually start chatting as
Okay.
long as I can.
Okay. I'm gonna give it a couple of more minutes. You all see if we have anyone else join. Otherwise, we gonna carry the field and we'll invite these brothers on. Good having you, brother Rodney and brother JB. We are ready for y'all to be submissive and hand us men the mic. And I quote. And so what we're gonna do is teach y'all a little bit of submissiveness and allow you to stay in the audience for a minute. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Oh,
Oh. All right, I'll give it one more minute and then I'm gonna get us started. I'm presuming that it might be people fluttering in a little later. School done started. So people probably got after school activities like Devin and gotta get their kids settled and all that. So we'll give them one more minute and then sisters, we gonna get started.
right.
All right, all right. We are gonna go ahead and kick things off. I think I'm gonna go ahead and invite the brothers on up to the stage to speak as we start off our conversation. Thank you all for joining us this evening on Unpacking episode 8 of the Blacked Out Couch, focusing on submissiveness. We had a great conversation. We went to church quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
We went to church quite a bit. I say that it was a great time, a good time. We also had some balanced perspective with Sister Shonda, who is not on the line tonight, but we still send her good thoughts, prayers, and energy her way. So I kind of wanted to kick this conversation off, especially since we have a few brothers in the room, with a basic question on why is submissiveness such a bad thing? And what I mean by that is, I personally feel like everyone in my circle that's close to me have strong opinions on when other people need to be submissive, but I don't ever
Mm-hmm.
really hear anybody talk about I should have been submissive. So, that it kind of feels like one of those things where no one really wants to be it, but feel like everybody else should be. Why is that the case?
I mean, honestly, that's like most things, Honestly, I just was telling my daughter this on Sunday, like when we left church, I was just kind of pondering on, like the sermon and everything, and I was telling her how it's interesting, like when you hear a sermon, you barely take the time to apply it to yourself. You're like, oh, I know somebody who should have heard that. And you're like almost immediately thinking of somebody else that you could beat over the head with instead of first like taking that in and seeing how it could better your situation or something that you could apply from it. So I think it's just kind of a natural thing.
Okay, okay, okay. Brother Rodney, you don't got nothing to say for this one?
If I was gonna say anything, I would say it's really a misunderstanding, misuse of appropriate definition of the word. Right. I think that most people have a skewed view about what submission is, what being submissive looks like, when you're supposed to be submissive, who's supposed to be submissive. I think that a lot of people have a skewed view of it because they just truly don't understand the word, the concept, um, and what all it entails. So, if I had to answer the question, I just think it's people misunderstanding or misusing the word.
All right. I don't think I would disagree with that. So we just got brother gang type Mike to join. Always a pleasure having you, brother. We definitely have continued to keep you uplifted in our prayers. It's good to see you tonight.
Thank you, thank you. I
You're
appreciate that.
so
What's up,
welcome.
everybody? How the ladies doing tonight? Just wanted to join in, give y'all some support, see what y'all talking about.
Thank you. Yeah, so I just asked the audience, why is submissive such a bad thing? It's very common for most people to have an opinion on when everybody else should be submissive, but not necessarily when they should be submissive. So that's kind of where we are right now.
Okay, I'll chime in when I have a little something, something.
Okay, cool, cool. So I think that I agree with Nico and Rodney in that it's a misunderstanding, but it's also a kind of people don't look in the mirror sort of thing, like Nico was saying. For me, I feel like it's kind of hard to admit when you need to fall back. I think that's just difficult for all people, just kind of like being wrong. Most people don't like to admit when they're wrong. especially if they don't feel in a safe space, especially if they feel like they're around someone who's going to beat them down for being wrong. I think it's a similar kind of spirit around submissiveness. If I allow myself to be vulnerable, if I allow myself to be humble, if I allow myself to do things that I probably don't prefer to do, but I'm doing it out of respect of someone else's will, objective goal, then they have the opportunity to walk all over me or abuse me. So I kind of feel like it's a vulnerability factor. Most people don't like to just put themselves out there to be at the behest of someone else and their vision, even though we do it all the time, especially if you are not an entrepreneur. Or even if you are an entrepreneur, you can't just, market things the way that you want to market them. You have to market them the way that your customers and your consumers and the people who are going to be upholding your brand is going to. So we all have to be submissive, but why is it so difficult for us to admit it? I don't know.
I think Princess, and this is just my opinion for different people. Um, Being submissive also has a lot to do with your personality, or things that have happened to you, or things that trigger you. For example, like myself, I hate confrontations on any level. I don't care what it's on. I just don't like confrontations. So if something is brewing and I'm dealing with someone who's really, stubborn or strong about what they feel, I always naturally take the back burner. And it's not because, I'm afraid of confrontation. I just feel it's not worth my time. And sometimes you can be, trying to prove a point or move something with someone that's really irrational, and we'll burn ourselves out or get out of a character, on certain things just because you're dealing with someone that never see a viewpoint. So you know what? Hey, you're right. I'll do that. I'll back down, because some people just won't let it go. They're really strong headed, and in some cases that could be a issue. Or on the flip side, I've never had any trauma that makes me want to back up in a corner. But you also have people that do, and so they're like, I don't want to deal with that. I'm really afraid to challenge something or make my opinion, or say what I like. I'm just kind of like, yes, no sir, no. And so sometimes that can have a lot to do with a person's level of submissiveness, whether they're kind of chill or whether they're very aggressive, and they're not going to stop until things kind of go their way.
Mm, mm. That's really all I can say to that. For me, I think it depends on the confrontation. So I don't know. I would like to pose that to the group. When someone is challenging you, just you personally, how do you respond? Does it depend on the relationship? Does it depend on the topic? Are you somebody where no one's going to challenge me because I know what I'm talking about? How the rest of the group feel about that?
I mean, I think kind of overall, for me, it depends on time and place. It doesn't necessarily have to do with like the topic or, I'm so big and bad or anything like that. It just kind of more boils down to time and place. I'm probably going to approach it pretty similar, but I'm going to just try to be very um, smart about the time and place that I might approach it. And I don't guess I totally connect that to like submissiveness, because I just feel that's more to me like maybe compromise, or even more like, being passive or aggressive, that she kind of mentioned. But submissive is like being a part of a plan, right? Like you're supporting someone or something, or so it could boil down to relationship too, I guess, if you're like in a marriage, you know what I mean, which I don't know nothing about. But if you're like in a marriage and you're a part of this plan and you're being submissive to your spouse, then you may handle confrontation a little bit different. But I guess I don't see like a total connection to that. But as far as how I handle confrontation, it's basically time and place.
Well, I think submission, like we discussed on our podcast that day, it has a lot to do with compromise. But I do
Yeah.
agree that it has to also do, like you said, time and place. That would be number two for me if I had to make a decision on if I'm going to be submissive to something or if I'm going to, not be.
Hmm.
And number two would be the place I'm at. But number one is like if it comes to my children, I really don't care where I am. If they are in the right, because I don't defend my children when they're in the wrong, but if they're in the right, different things like that when it comes to, because sometimes you have to be submissive when you're dealing with authority at schools or different things relating to your children. Do you, kind of go with the flow or different things like that? So the topic would be number one for me, but most definitely time and place would be the same. And that's if we're talking about general. Now we're talking about,
Hmm.
spouses or different things like that, because of course we agree submissive is in more than one area. So that's what I was, pretty much trying to talk generally about that.
Yeah. Okay. So real quick, I'm gonna pause on the conversation to give my girl Shonda a shout out. Hey, I get excited every time I see her pop on the line.
What's up, y'all? I'm a little late because I had to pick my grandson up from the daycare and drop him off.
It's okay. I hope he's doing all right.
Oh, yeah, he good. Of course, he had a
Good.
meltdown when I left out the door, but that's normal.
Oh, that's that love. That's that love. Good, good. It's good to have you. It's good to have you. All right.
Absolutely.
Janine and Nico, getting back to your points about conflict, I think that I find it relevant. In this instance, in that, if the concept of submissiveness is somebody supporting another person's vision or supporting another person's, a goal or will or whatever, however you want to frame it, if the person who's supporting doesn't agree and then they choose to challenge or they choose to not, want to follow in the way that the leader is telling them to follow, that ultimately can lead to conflict. I think it was my, my mom on Unpacking episode 2 where she mentioned there can only be one driver of a vehicle. And so what happened if the passengers start fighting for the wheel? And I think personally, just people in my camp, maybe I'm just around a lot of strong, thick headed people, but I see in my camp a lot of people who prefer to drive than ride, especially if they don't really like the direction that another person is taking. And so it's part of me wonders if trust, I guess, is a factor. Nico, when you were talking about time and place, Miss Janine, when you were talking about the topic or even the energy, is the energy even worth it? Is there a trust factor that's related to submissiveness in the relationship? I
I
don't
think
know
so.
what y'all
Yeah.
saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a major trust factor. And I agree with everyone. Like I said, I just had to kind of connect it. So it just, depends on different scenarios. But I do think, if you are in the situation and then if someone is um, pushing back, then there's the confrontation and the conflict. So that's cool. And I think it really boils down to kind of what Rodney says. Everyone just kind of misunderstands it or have their own definition of it or have experienced it in negative ways or have all type of kind of views on it. But if you boil it down to what it actually is, and it most definitely would trust would be relevant. Like it was mentioned earlier too, as far as let's say you got it all figured out and you go ahead and agree to it and you're submissive to someone and then it's like thrown back in your face in a different setting. So that's kind of where trust comes in. You're kind of trying to protect yourself from something like that happening. So therefore, you want to try to hold back, from being submissive, so it's not like thrown back in your face.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe talking a bit more on that, understanding what it is. So I am still, and I mentioned this on the podcast, I'm still learning to be comfortable with the term submissive for various reasons. But in that, I don't really like asking people to be submissive to me. I think that it's strange. It's just weird. But the one time where I felt very strongly about it was at my wedding. Like, all my bridesmaids, we got on the meeting. I said, "Look, y'all, I know y'all here for me. I'm not asking you all to put out any money for anything. I'm gonna cover the cost of your outfit, just pay for your travel. I'm covering the cost of everything else, makeup, all that. But I need y'all to be on board with my vision, even if you think it's tacky. Because it's my day, it's my vision, and you're here to support me." And I would think that most people who are on this call probably would feel like, yeah, for the bride, it's the bride and the groom, it's their day. So we're all here to support and make sure that their vision comes to life. So I feel like in that instance, it's kind of clear and cut. But
Yeah.
those boundaries and those lines aren't always so obvious in other areas of life, such as marriages and relationships. So maybe brothers in the room, how do y'all feel about the concept of submissiveness, and what areas of life do you feel as if you should be submissive versus people being submissive to you?
You know, I'm gonna take a quick detour here, and I'm gonna just speak from a personal standpoint. So this may or may not apply to other brothers or other sisters in the room. But for me, and a lot of people don't know this, but for me, I think that my view of submission, Princess, you asked a question about, conflict earlier. A lot of people may consider me a confrontational person. But what a lot of people don't know is that, at a very young age, for a long period of time in my childhood, I was bullied. I was made to submit pretty much by everybody around me, older family members, people at school, teachers, people in the community, neighbors. I was a really, really soft spoken child. I didn't really have a platform, a space to kind of speak about how I felt. When my mother died and they relocated us to Kansas City from St. Louis, that was kind of the first time that I was sort of given a voice. And it was almost kind of like forced, like, I wasn't used to speaking up for myself. I wasn't used to confrontations and that sort of thing. And so I had to be kind of molded into, a teenager that would speak up for himself, right? And so fast forward, I believe that a lot of like my confrontational moments of conflict, moments where either one of us is gonna have to submit, and usually it's like it's not gonna be me. A lot of that may be centered in my trauma as a child, my trauma from my past, as it pertained to authorities, not being able to trust my well-being in the hands of others. So I wanted to just kind of ask, um, if I was alone in that, because again, I'm speaking from a personal standpoint. And, as I've gotten older, I've come to understand what submission is a little bit better, but just at the core, and you guys spoke about this in your episode, submission at the core just kind of feels like you're putting someone else before you, and that's difficult and challenging for me personally, a lot of times.
Rodney, I've never had that experience, but of course my heart goes out to you for that. But that was pretty much kind of like the point that I was making earlier, that how we are when it comes to that could have a lot to do, with our environment or things that happen to us, trauma triggers, And I'm sure, in your mind, the feeling is the feeling. At any time you may feel, attacked or something that may give you the same feeling as when you were a kid, it can make that very, 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 very hard. So I can most definitely relate to that because I have issues like that. It's not in the area of submissiveness, but I know what that feels like in other situations. Because if it happened to you, as a kid, you're gonna always have that defense up. So I can most definitely relate to that.
I'll jump in here. So for me, you know, it may be one of the most difficult things to deal with. Um, Submissive has never been in my vocabulary. Anybody that knows me from way back till now knows that that just ain't how GT rolls. But me maturing and looking at the world through a different lens, I started to open up to the idea, and I was quite in a foreign space with doing so. Now, with that, if I let go of the wheel and I let you drive, okay, I have a dependency on you now that I'm going to depend on you to drive the car, and I can literally close my eyes and not have to worry. And over time, me attempting these things, um, I haven't always it hasn't always been successful. Um, and so when that happens, it's like, see, I shouldn't let the motherfucker drive in the first damn place. So it's hard for me to become submissive because I'm so particular and just basically, like we were like Rod was, it's just the way I was raised. I wasn't raised to be a submissive person. I was raised by my father, as a single father, not by my mother. So um, my father raised me military style. So, I have a little roughness around the edges, but it's because of the background, right? So me knowing this and saying, you know what, that can't just be good in every situation all the time. So I try to open up and say, give it a try. It's all right. Give it a try. And the times when they're not successful is kicks me back into C. So it's hard for me to deal with still to this day and to this point, um, just because it just really hasn't. It just never really worked for me.
If I could jump in, y'all know I've been waiting. I know you asked for the males and everything, but I wanted to piggyback off of Rodney too. Um, with that experience, that's exactly what I experienced growing up. That's exactly why I don't take nobody's bullshit. That's exactly why I don't like the idea of putting my well being in the hands of somebody else because even at my youngest age, when I was the most vulnerable, I couldn't trust the people who had my well being in their hands. So it's really been a growth process for me to trust friends, family, relationships. I trust my intuition first. So that's where my little issue comes in with the whole, being 100% submissive in a relationship, and as well as watching my mother be 100% submissive in a relationship and be beat and abused in all kinds of ways. So, that just never really sat well with me. So that was I just wanted to drop that in there because I kind of went through a similar experience with that and as well as the bullying and stuff too.
I want to chime back in. You know, I think that the way that, like I said, the way that I look at submission, or the way that I did for so many years was based upon my experience and sort of feeling like I had been silenced for so long, and then finally given space to have a voice, and not ever wanting to let that go. Right. So now there's a lot of defense mechanisms that go up, and that sort of thing. Over time, as I matured, as I came to learn what submission truly means, because I don't truly believe that submission is a 100% thing. I think that it's a give and a take. I think that there are times where you're supposed to be submissive to somebody that is also supposed to be submissive to you at times, right? I think that that's something that I've come to learn, and the biggest, I think, common denominator in all of those situations is just the trust, right? When you're around somebody that you've either partnered with, somebody that you're building with, somebody that you may be in the trenches with, somebody you may be struggling with, it's easier to trust those people, those sorts of people in your circle. And I think in those situations, the give and take that comes along with being submissive, a lot of it happens organically, right? There's times that I was submissive in life that I didn't really know that that was me being submissive. You guys talked about it in your episode, just how much we submit to authorities when it comes to, jobs and, school relationships, right? We do a lot of, according to the definition of what submissive is, we do a lot of submitting to those around you. And a lot of the times, those aren't people that you can 100% trust with your well being, if you get where I'm going with that, right? It's like a lot of these relationships may be professional, they may not be intimate, they may not be personal relationships. We submit to the authority of the law pretty much daily. And so as you start to think about those things, as you start to mature, and you start to think about just how much you are submitting in situations where there is no opportunity for blind trust, it should start to become easier for people that you have closer, more personal, intimate relationships with. At least that's what it was for me.
I
Um,
don't call that being submissive. I call that abiding by the law.
but that's the word abiding,
Hey,
right? These are all
yeah,
words that are synonymous with
I ain't talking about
submission.
synonyms.
being submissive. What's that?
I'm not referring to synonyms.
Well, that's I
But
get that, but I mean it's language, bro. Like
yeah, but
language is
yeah,
language is language.
like we got multiple words that mean the same thing, and one word can have multiple meanings.
Right.
So so
I think we all
abide.
know that.
So another way, yeah, another way to say submission is follow. So it's basically being a good follower, or and to be a good follower, yeah, you're following somebody, and
You
Rodney hit
always
it on
gotta
the
learn how
head.
to follow before you can lead. Now that I think that's
Well,
different for me.
well, that's good leaders do that. Good leaders.
Right.
So you have some people, like for example, how you said, like just how you were raised. This is how you are.
Right.
You might not necessarily had gone through the rigors of becoming a leader, but you were just kind of raised that way. You might not have those. You might not have those. What's the word I'm looking for? Experiences. Of and it's hard to say this without a context, but you might not have experiences of let's say me. I've been married for 20 years. You don't have that experience, right?
Correct.
So just examples of what he's talking about. My bad, Josh. But
I understand. Let me say this before you start. I understand what he's talking about wholeheartedly. Right. It's just the way I
uh huh.
view it through my lenses. I just don't. necessarily all the way agree. That's all. Not saying that I don't understand. So it's not necessarily
Oh
that I
yeah.
need an explanation because I understand what you're saying. I'm
Okay.
just saying from my
Gotcha.
point of view, this is the way I look at it.
Gotcha.
Okay, look, and you know what, GT, I'm with you 1,000% there. It's just it's a couple of points that I want to make. So like abiding by the law is the same thing as following or submitting to the law. It's the exact same thing. It means the same thing
So
by
let me
definition.
before I, but we all know this GT and GT don't 100% abide by the law on a daily basis.
Correct, correct, and I get that, right? But now I'm gonna make my other point. You said that because of the way that you were raised by your father in sort of a very militant energy, and so you're rough around the edges, but you were raised in submission. Like if you were raised with a militant leader, then that means that you were taught to submit to his leadership.
Absolutely.
I was
Like
just taught to respect.
there's no way
I was
around
just
that.
taught, and the way I look at it through my lens, I was just taught to respect my parents. You
Right,
can
but
call
that's
it,
again,
and you
that's
know what?
submitting. Like
And for me,
submitting.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I'm saying like that's the same. All of those are principles
Hey,
in being taught to
It's
submit.
potato, right? It's potato. It's potato. Potato. I get it, right? I understand all of that. I'm saying the way I look at it. So for GT, you know what I'm saying? That
so
don't. I'm just respecting my parents,
I got a
my
question. Let me ask him, GT. So, are you capable of being submissive?
yeah.
Okay.
See, and I love that GT just shared his authentic
Mm-hmm.
perspective because I feel like most people are so against the term of submissive that they have completely separated it and put it in
Uh
its
huh.
own category where respect is something
Yep.
different than submissive, right? Abiding by the rules is something different than submissive. When it's like, but is it though?
And that's
But
why I asked the question the way I asked it, just to see how he felt about that word. So, I get him. I feel him.
okay, so then I want to pose another question to the group. Would you all say that on balance, on average, most people are okay, abiding or respecting or submitting when it benefits them in the long run? Right? So for example, law abiding citizen, well, yeah, I'm gonna abide by the law because if I don't, then over the long run I might be incarcerated and that's gonna be worse for me than if I just abide by something I don't like.
Absolutely. That's what I mean when I say like we all are submissive. Circling back to what GT said, he's not 100% law-abiding citizen. That still falls under my practice of submission because I don't think that's being submissive is 100% for anybody. Like it's only going to be to a point because there's a give and a take, right? So we absolutely are doing things um, because of it being, it's something that is system based. It's based on a system. We do certain routines because that's just the way that it is, right? But we do those things because it benefits us more than if we didn't do certain things, right? Like, so just talking about the law, right? There's all sorts of way that you can either abide by the law or not abide by the law, right? And to me, I look at that as just system based things, right? If you're the person that is a taxpayer, you're abiding by the law in some form or fashion, and you're doing so that you can continue to hold on to your money and freedom. So it does, you do tend to submit or abide by certain rules or principles when it benefits you. I think it's human nature.
I think what's really like super important in these conversations about submission to other individuals, whether that be friendships, family, relationships, I think discernment is missing from these conversations a lot. Because, for example, in like dating situations, I've been in multiple situations where like I literally just met somebody and we having this conversation like, wait a minute, I just met you, I don't know you, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I think discernment is important when you're dealing with anybody, and where you put that energy towards um being vulnerable and trusting somebody to submit to them, because people go to jobs every day and submit to that job, but they ain't had great discernment about that job.
Mm. Mm. Say that.
You know what I'm saying? People sit in relationships again, you know, not just trying to keep using my family, but that's my experience. I've seen it not just in my parents, but in multiple aspects and multiple relationships in my family where women stay and be submissive in abusive relationships. Where's the discernment in that? I
Mm.
just don't think that comes out enough.
So can we go ahead and take the gloves off and stop beating around the bush and let's really speak on submission in the aspect of partner relationships, because I think that's where everybody wants to go. Let's just be honest.
Okay, let's go
All
there.
right, so single ladies, why can't y'all submit to a man?
Why don't men
Whoa,
feel
buddy.
like
Look,
they
whoa,
Hold
buddy.
on,
okay?
princess. He wasn't talking
Oh
to
wait,
you, princess. Princess, he wasn't even
he
talking to
said
you.
he said take the gloves off.
He
He
said
didn't
single
say
ladies. He said single ladies. So I don't know why my wife in here talking.
She- well, I am most definitely that. And you coming at me, sir, like you know me. Why can't we submit? I absolutely can if I'm in the right situation.
See?
JB, you should have asked them by a show of hands who all can say that they have been submissive in the past in relationships, because
Hey,
they all gonna
you,
say
you
they
just
can't.
asked,
They
you
all
just
gonna say
asked.
they can.
Hey, I tell y'all what, I'm submissive every day to my wife, and she just looked at me like I was lying. I've been trying to get her on to talk y'all, but she won't come.
Hello.
Mrs. Brown, we need
Can
your
we
voice.
can we
They,
speak on
they
that,
said they need your
JB?
voice.
Can we
They
speak
said they
on
need
can
you.
we speak on husbands that are submissive daily?
Like submissive daily. It's just a respect thing. It's not even hard to do. It's like if you have respect for somebody, what's wrong with it?
That's right.
Well,
There's
and
nothing
who?
wrong with
It's,
it.
it's that it's that it's that vulnerability thing. You have to be able to trust that person. It's period. Vulnerability and transparency. If you don't have that, why are you there? Discernment. Just like was it LaShawn that said that?
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm walking through Costco, y'all, so I can't like pay attention to who's speaking. My bad,
yes, discernment.
but yeah.
Yes.
So if I didn't trust my wife to be able to take the reins, what's the point of having my wife? That's just another kid. So the woman I chose, yes, I'm gonna follow her lead sometimes.
Hello.
Okay. Well, I'll speak on it because I'm single, Jonathan, and
Go ahead.
yes,
I know the answer. I just want to hear what y'all. I just want to know if y'all gonna be truthful.
no, I'm gonna be so honest with you. I'm gonna be so honest with you, because like I said, I have never seen submissive as being a issue because I grew up with four brothers. I was the only girl, so I was pretty much kind of taught that way, and growing up in the country, old school. I've always seen it. I've never had a problem with it. um I'll just be honest with you, since I never had a problem with it, I have always been submissive. But the issue that I had was I never had good discernment, like LaShonda says. It kind of come out 3, 4, 5 years later, was like, oh boy, this was not, you know, the person to be submissive with, and I'll just kind of let it go. But one thing that I've learned is discernment is so important, but also you never let a bad experience um deter you from being submissive. And what I mean by that is sometimes we have experiences that happen and we're like, nope, not gonna do it, ain't gonna do it. But one thing that I kind of came to in 2011 is that I have to follow biblical principles. We all are humans, we jack up, we make mistakes, and then it'll turn us from what the word said. It'll change our perspective. But no, where was I in that? I made a bad decision and I chose someone that I was submissive to. That was my fault. So I can't let what I did or that bad experience change the perspective of biblical principles. And so what I think we have to do is learn not to use experiences, and we have to look out of a lens. I can't look out of my lens. Princess can't look out of her lens. Rod can't look out of his lens. We all have to look out of that lens, the same lens. And then the same lens is biblical principles. And so that's what we have to fight hard for, to do what the word says. Dig down in your spirit and keep praying for discernment and learn how to choose the right situation. Because like you said, Jonathan, submissive is genuine. Like you said, I chose my wife. I'm sure you had good discernment. So yeah, I'm gonna follow her lead. We are a couple. And sometimes we look at submissiveness completely different, like I don't have a say. No, we come together because I chose you and I'm the man and I'm the lead. I trust you and I'm gonna listen to you. So those are things that we have to keep in perspective. So absolutely I would be submissive, but I slowed my roll and I took a backseat and I wasn't in a relationship or anything for a couple of years so that I could identify that person. Because when you can learn not to be lonely and not gravitate to anything, that's where we make those mistakes and our discernment get watered down because the spirit of loneliness came in and I'm just finna choose somebody because I'm about ready, right? No, you have to learn to be content with yourself because the word says he that finds a good wife will find a good thing. So we have to prepare ourselves and be able to recognize when your king come your way and he choose you, and submitting is genuine. So we have to learn how not to take those experiences and turn it into something different. We have to learn to have good discernment and we have to play our role according to biblical principles. So yes, I can be submissive. I'm willing to be submissive, but I will wait on that person and make good discernment when I choose that person because I am expecting him to lead me and I'm expecting to compliment him and I'm expecting it to be a beautiful thing because I'm waiting on that right one.
Come on
Mm,
now.
okay.
Mic drop, mic drop.
Come on
And
now.
I most definitely like check to all that that she said. And one thing I was thinking before she even started, just kind of we're piggybacking off of something LaShonda said. A part of why, from personal experience, people stay in certain situations is because one, there is some benefit there, whether it's tiny or huge. There is some benefit there, even in an abusive relationship. There may be some benefit that you're holding on to. And then, secondly, kind of tying into it, a part of what Miss Janine says, I'm going to always be me. So I don't know any other way to be. So I was in like a 15-year relationship. I mean, I've been single for 19 years now. Yes, indeed. Super single is what I call it. Um, but I was in like a 15-year relationship and I was determined to be me. Like, I know that I'm respectful. I know that I can be submissive. So I was just steady being me. So I didn't want to be hardened by like the treatment that I was receiving, and I didn't want to turn into some horrible person that I wasn't. It's just the fact that I just didn't get out of the situation, when I should have got out of the situation. So it was just some ups and downs and bumps and bruises, but I was absolutely determined to be me. So I was never throughout the whole time hit on, cheated on, all type of stuff. I never like changed how I tried to treat him and how I tried to stay me. I just should have got out of it way, way sooner.
Mm-mm.
Well, as a single woman who came out the gate thinking that submissiveness was the right thing, because I grew up in a household where my parents was married and had been married for years, and I'm a very forgiving person. So a lot of the abuse and stuff that I witnessed and everything like that, I came out the gate like, well, everybody ain't gonna be like my daddy until I started encountering a lot of people like my daddy. And like other people, like it has been like Miss Janine said, you know, you you go through these experiences and you thinking you doing the right thing, because that's how you was raised. Like Miss Janine, I come from people that's from the country, big, huge families. My dad, my daddy got 21 kids. So, I really didn't know nothing else but marriage and family when I got out here. But my experience didn't reflect my upbringing. And so I had to change how I did things because, I had to learn that just because I get in a relationship with somebody, that don't mean that that person is, um, you know, adequate for me to be letting my guard down like that with them because I got a big heart. I wear my heart on my sleeve and people like to take advantage of that. So it took a long time for me to come to that understanding and learn how to set boundaries. So now I'm comfortable with going into a situation knowing what my boundaries are, knowing where to make proper judgments and move forward. And so I can definitely be submissive. Like, I don't necessarily like the term, but in concept, I've done it multiple times over and over again.
You know what? Just to say this behind Lashonda, um, a lot of what a lot of us are seeing, and a lot of us, and I'm only speaking from my experience, because in my past relationships, I haven't had that many. I have long ones, but I always chose the same guy. He was just a different face and a different name. Okay. And when that kept happening, just kept happening, I had to really I had to heal. I had to seek therapy to help me understand, why do I keep choosing the same kind of person? What the hell is going on? And I had to go all the way back to when I was 5 years old. I had to seek therapy to help me understand myself. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, yes, experiences, yes, those things cause us to see things with different views, but at the same time, it keeps us hesitant from our true purpose, what God really designed us for. Because, the Bible says, and I don't have nothing else to go back to but the Bible, is that man is not meant to live alone. He also says, he that finds a good wife finds a good thing. So, in my opinion, according to what the word says, you won't ever feel your complete purpose in life, because your complete purpose, or the best version of yourself, is within a union. It's within a union. And sometimes the hurt or those past experiences cause us not to want to do that complete union. And so we all have to kind of find that area and just kind of continue to heal. And I think that's one thing that I came to, because like I said, all mine, y'all, I don't have one. I'll be 50 in a few weeks, and I have never in my life had a great experience. Okay, never had a great experience. Do I remain hopeful? Do I look forward to that day when if someone comes along that I can be submissive to? Absolutely. But what I did realize is that if I didn't heal from the experiences, I wouldn't get to that, and I'll never fulfill my whole complete purpose. And so we have to seek areas that cause us to not, kind of line up for through biblical principles, so that we can, get to that complete purpose of what God designs us, to do or to be with that union purpose of that person, and that cohesiveness that comes from being in a healthy marriage.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. As y'all were talking, it kind of made me reflect about my growth process as it pertains to relationships, because early on when you get let down from relationships, you do. It's kind of a natural thing for you to put up this this wall, where you've kind of been hardened, you've been changed, you got certain things you like. I'm not gonna do it like that no more. I'm gonna live like this, and I'm gonna be out here like this. And so I did that a lot, from a young age throughout relationships, and in the end, that doesn't help anybody's growth. Like Miss Janine says, it's not really until you heal, until you can have the courage, like Miss Nico, like Miss Lashonda said, to just continue to be yourself, and not let bad experiences change the way you are in relationships. And that's a challenge. It's definitely more easier said than it is done, because I definitely done that throughout life.
I think I always remind myself that what people do to me is not always a reflection of myself. So yeah, it may make me dig and reflect on myself and see what it is that I'm doing to continue to make these choices or following these same patterns. But it's not always, like for me, a lot of it was like I felt growing up like I was treated a certain way. Um, and in relationships, like I was treated a certain way because of something that I was possibly lacking. So when relationships didn't work out, it was always self reflection for me. But the thing I didn't take into consideration was that it was not always me. I blame myself every time, but it was not always me. You know, um, there are people that simply just prey on people who have good hearts, and there's just people out there like that. Whether people want to believe that or not, that's why you have to be discerning or whatnot. Because, like I said, and I also grew up with the idea that I had to bring certain things to the table in order to be loved rather than just being myself, just being love for myself, because that is how I was programmed.
Okay. Oh, y'all is really speaking the real, and I appreciate you all for sharing your vulnerabilities, your experiences. There's one question that keeps coming to mind as I hear you all talking, and I'm gonna go ahead and just pose it. Does submissiveness have to be earned? Meaning, if I am to submit myself to someone, is that something that they have to earn?
I know
I
everybody
think
gonna
it's
say
levels
yes,
to it. I
but
think it's levels to it.
I was gonna say the short answer is really no, because I think that submission is
Same.
is, is a form of respect, and I think that, you can be respectful, you can be accommodating to a complete stranger, just in certain instances and moments. So, I think that the short answer is no, but I think most people will probably say yes. Like Miss Lashonda said, there are levels to it. So I'm speaking about kind of the most basic level. For some of the deeper levels, absolutely. I think that any deeper level of intimacy, or you opening up and being vulnerable to a person, I think that there are levels to that. So, for some of the deeper levels, yes, but the short answer for me is no.
Okay, well, adding some context, since we were talking about relationships, that's kind of where we were in that instance, right? I think it was Mr. JB, Mr. Jonathan, who asked, single ladies, why do you have an issue with being submissive? Well, I mean, if I got to discern, don't that mean that it kind of needs to be earned?
You know,
Help me understand, y'all.
you know what? I'll speak from that angle really quickly, and I'm gonna kind of go back to something that JB said, because I think that's kind of a mantra that I've always lived by. If I choose a person, if I choose to be in a relationship with a person, um, all of that shit about, hey, I don't really trust this person. This person has to earn. this level of me, choosing that person in itself is, you're supposed to only choose a person that you do trust, that you have created that level of vulnerability with. So I think that if you find yourself in relationships, in a commitment where you guys have decided to officially be in a relationship, if you find yourself in relationships with people that you still have difficulty trusting, there's still some things that they need to earn. When it comes to that, I think that maybe you might have rushed into that situation, because you should be able to, once you've decided to say, hey, we're in a relationship, we're in a committed situation, a partnership, you should be able to trust that person. So in my opinion, that level of discernment that we're saying should be earned, should already be earned before you give that person that title.
I agree with that.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I
So
agree
then,
too. You should come to the table open to it if that person has your interest, and as you grow and learn about each other, and you see a red flag, then you run. But other than that, yeah, I think you should come in with a clean slate and be open to it. Be that.
Hey, full shit, all y'all. So actually, I'll take that back. But it's easier said than done. I'll just say that.
I don't know. I feel like I heard yes. I feel like I heard you have to build up to it before you make the commitment. It should be someone you trust. It should be someone that you know is going to have your back. So to me, that sounds like yes, they have to earn it. Yes, you have to build up to that, and not necessarily earn it in that prove themselves, but earn it in that they have to show you that you both are, that they're aligned with you. To me, that's the same thing as earning it.
Yeah, I think that that's what I was saying was, they've earned it through earning that right to be with you, which comes with a lot more than just discernment for submission and that sort of thing. Like, if once you get to that stage of saying, this is the person that I'm going to be with, in my mind, it's assumed that there's a certain level of deserving energy that they've earned.
I kind of
Absolutely.
think that's like
Yeah,
a
we can.
cycle kind of though, because I mean I get where you most definitely, Princess, when you say, build up to it, that basically kind of equates to earning it. But it's like a cycle though, because you won't necessarily, I can't earn it from someone if I'm not giving it. So like from day one, I will be kind of like Rodney said, like respectful and like submissive to, our conversations and us getting to know each other. And that is then going to have, the person, like reciprocate that. And then we're just both being submissive as we're getting to know each other. But it wasn't anything that was earned initially necessarily. So it's just kind of a cycle because I'm going to give that to you from day one. But then as it's like reciprocated, because if I see it isn't, like if I'm being submissive, and then, I'm being like disrespected and mistreated and all that stuff, then I didn't necessarily lose out too much, but I started I'm going to be me from the beginning. So you don't have to really like earn it, if that
Yeah.
makes any kind of sense.
Yes,
It,
yes, it
it
does.
does.
I don't mean to be
So
rude, but I just saw Dr. Roper just graced us. Hi, Dr. Roper. How you doing? I saw you trying to speak sometimes, so I want to go ahead and pass you the mic.
I can't hear
Oh, I
Yeah,
Ro.
we
can't
having
hear
a
him.
hard time hearing you. I heard you
Oh,
say
okay.
sometimes in relationships we do what?
jump the gun.
Yeah.
You have to yield to the other person in situations. That process should begin in the dating process. You should never get to a stage where you're submitting someone to someone before you're really tied in that kind of unity that we're saying, hey, we're building a family together. Because if you submit to me before we marry, I'm not really committed. There is no, we talk about committed relationship. The committed relationship is marriage. And in marriage, you submit to one another. And it becomes very natural because you know what each one is capable of. I submit to my wife when it comes to bills. Why? Because I'm horrible. So if she says, hey, we need to do this with the money, yes, ma'am.
So
That's
so I kind of disagree. I agree, but I kind of disagree a little bit because I think the biblical principle of submission is not only speaking about marital relationships. It speaks about us submitting to each other outside of the union of marriage as well. So that's the only thing that I would sort of challenge there, is that it submission does not only begin in a marital relationship. I think that we are supposed to submit ourselves to one another according to what the biblical verses say.
Yes, it also does have a caveat of submitting to the Lord first, then submitting to others, and submitting to, your spouse and so on and so forth. Just want to.
exactly. So that's what I was basically saying, is that we oftentimes look at submission as a hard thing. It's because we're looking at it from a worldly perspective. Submitting doesn't mean giving up necessarily who your power. Your power is in submitting. My parents were married 55 years before my dad passed away. My mom said her greatest power was being able to submit to my dad, because it took it saying not only did she trust him, but that she was doing what she was supposed to do. So it's not just about giving away, because I mean I remember specifically growing up and they would have discussions. Dad words was final, but mom words were always taken into consideration. I think that's the part that sometimes we look, when I say submission from a worldly point of view, is those relationships weren't right from the begin. And a lot of times, especially for women, they find themselves difficult to submit because they know they're not with the right man, right? Men take advantage of that because they know they're not with the right woman. So I think that's what makes submission difficult, is when you're not with the right person.
Hey, my brother, I'm sorry, man. I heard about 50% of what you said.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to hear,
I
Rope,
don't know
like
what's
like
going on
you
with
ain't
my
on the
phone, bro.
speaker.
I got can you hear me clear now? I don't know, I might need to hook my Bluetooth. I ain't on Bluetooth or nothing.
That's the Android life.
He definitely enjoyed.
Stop. My phone
It
cost
gotta be
my phone made by the same Asian people that made yours. Stop it.
enjoyed life.
Your chip come from Asia just like mine did, bro.
Yours is more submissive than.
Can you hear me? I'm trying to find a good spot in the house, so I do stay in Kansas.
We
So
still
My
the
can't
que-
hear
Android
you.
works perfectly
what
fine,
was the
just to
original
let
question
everyone
again,
know.
Princess? What was the question?
The question was, does submissiveness have to be earned? Speaking more in the context of relationships, right? Because we talked about discerning, right? There was a question posed about why don't single women submit, and it's like, well, wait a minute, is that something that's supposed to be earned when you're talking about submissiveness to a partner? That was the
Okay,
question.
got
One
you.
thing that Dr. Roper said that really like just slapped me in the face, even though it's not really relevant to me because I'm married to a wonderful man. He said that part of the reason why there could be issues with submissiveness in a relationship context is because women are submitting to men that they know they really shouldn't be submitting to. And men know
Yeah.
that they're in relationships with women that they're not going to do right by, and they take advantage of it. So then that sort of cycle of toxicity and kind of ignoring the discernment that's there can create stigmas around submissiveness. That's me kind of putting my spin on what I heard Dr. Roper say. But Dr. Roper, chime on in if I got that wrong.
No, that's exactly what I was trying to say, and I'm sorry, I my phone is not cooperating with me tonight, but that's exactly what I was trying to convey.
Oh wee.
That's 100. 'Cause, Hey, I feel like I've heard all y'all complain complain about. I don't know about y'all, but I've heard a lot of women complain about being single moms and the guys they deal with. That's the situation you come up with, unfortunately. But it needs to be earned. It's respect, and just the same way you earn it, you can lose it.
Man, y'all Android life killing me. Y'all Android life killing me. I'm trying to get all the jewels and I'm picking up rocks.
You can't hear me, bro.
Oh, now I can hear you. That's a little bit better. I don't, hey, maybe my hearing ain't good. I don't know.
It might be all that hair on your face. It's getting in your ears.
Listen, man. I just disagree a little bit, JB. I think that as people grow together, I think that there are different levels that are unlocked. There has to be a starting point of respect and submitting to each other. That has to
And
start when
and that is just common human decency in meeting somebody.
right, and that's what I
That's
mean.
just
But like,
life.
but every human is not that decent though. Like, right? Like every human ain't that decent
So
with everybody that they
I
meet.
suffer from oppositional defiance disorder. Like I see order, and for something in my head says fuck with that. I got an issue. Like, but I got the decency enough. Like, if I meet somebody, I'm gonna listen to them. I'm gonna talk to them. Now, ladies, I'm gonna give y'all a gem. This is something I've been telling my daughters, just in terms of men and dealing with them. And y'all grown, but a man will only respect you as much as you allow him to. So if you
Say
don't
that.
respect yourself, I for sure ain't gonna respect
Say
you, and I'm
that.
gonna do what I want to do. So you're gonna submit because I'm gonna smash. That's the mission, and that's about all I need from you. So
I got a question.
Uh-oh.
Has anybody talked about leadership?
yeah, nigga, be on time, house nigga.
Well, cause I'm trying to move. Nah, no bullshit. I'm trying to move. Uh,
I'm messing with you, bro.
but I guess the reason I'm saying that because a lot of times the submissive part is it has to do with the type of relationship that a person has. Okay, and when you couple that with humans being creatures of habit, you're not going to be in the habit of submitting if that's not what the thought process that you're in, even though you may be in a relationship, being in love and about to be married. you know uh if you don't have that, that if you always do that, if you grow up that way, or if you think about it and that's how you want to be, then that's how it's going to be. Now, as far as submissiveness, it doesn't mean that the person that's leading actually is a good leader. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's all about leadership. Can the woman actually follow that man? You know, does this man, really put his life before her? Submissiveness really boils down to really where you give your life away for him. You know what I mean? But
I get
that's
that,
just
man,
my little
but so let me chime in, man. Like it irritates me to hear sort of that concept and that theory, even though I get it, right? For me, I just go back to laying in the bed that you made. You don't choose a person, and then the entire time that you with them, you talking about, well, this person's not a good leader, so I'm not gonna follow or submit to him. When you choose that person, you need to be choosing them with that level of discernment, with that level of understanding who that person is. And if you find out that you made a mistake, then you get out of that situation. You don't we have to learn how to admit that, hey, you know what? We fucked up. We made the mistake. We made the wrong judgment call with this person, and let me get myself out of this situation. There should not be a situation that you find yourself in where you are, as a woman or as a man, no matter whatever the gender is, you shouldn't find yourself in a situation where you're like making excuses for not submitting or not following somebody because they are not a good leader. If they're not a good leader, then they're not fit to be your partner. So you shouldn't
Yeah,
you shouldn't be
that's
with
yeah,
them.
but that's a whole nother horse ride though, because when you thinking about it, you're talking about as far as the person picking the partner and whether or not they can actually understand whether this person can even be a leader. I get that part. Where I'm getting at is how if a person by habituals, by habit, people do or their behaviors is based off of that. Like it's like personalities are like animals. It's like the animal kingdom. You don't deal with the domestic cat like you do with a lion. So when it comes to submitting or leadership, those are traits that you're doing habitually, and then you'll be able to see the part that you're talking about is when the person is in the habit of being a leader or submissive and vice versa, whether they're not doing it.
I'm not even speaking about habitually, bro. I'm just speaking about like you don't accept a job offer if they not paying enough. You don't accept the job offer if the location is not beneficial to you. Like, bro, when you accepting this offer to enter into this partnership with somebody, you have to go into that believing that this person is a good leader, believing that this person is a good follower. You cannot go into that situation saying, I'm going pussyfoot. I'm going to drag my feet around in this relationship because this person ain't a good leader in the first place. So I'm not going to be 100%
So
with my partnership and my submission. That's what I'm speaking on. I'm speaking on the fact that once you pick that person as adults, we got to start having accountability for the people that we pick, and keeping a caveat there that if we made a mistake in that selection process, get out of the situation.
how do you figure that they made a mistake though? It could be that the person just changed. He just went from good to evil.
That's still a mistake. A mistake. It's a
Not a,
mistake in the sense
not,
that it's a mistake.
that's not a mistake. That's not
Wig, it's a mistake. I'm gonna answer it. It's a
good.
mistake in the sense that when you enter into a partnership with somebody, it's supposed to be for the long haul. It's supposed to be a long-term partnership. If you enter into a long-term partnership with somebody and you find out very briefly into that relationship that we made a mistake, that man, this is not gonna last as long as I thought it was gonna last. That happens in business. That happens in all sorts of relationships. You end the ties with that person rather than
No,
letting that person continue to drain you.
I disagree. The Bible says saving fornication. So it didn't say that whether or not that you are a good leader or you made a mistake. No. But I mean, when it comes to my understanding
Hey, but
of
what if
marriage,
you
that
believe the
falls
Bible's
out of
bullshit?
love.
None of that makes any sense.
Say again.
I said, what if you believe the Bible's bullshit? So that's it. So what does a person do if they don't believe in that book?
Well, me personally, I'm talking personally when I say that because me and my wife, we are both biblically bound. Uh, I will say this. Like if not the belief in somebody, that's a totally different thing. You know what I mean? Now we gotta cross that bridge when we get to it. But if we're in this based off of this audience, I'm not sure who believers are who are not. But what I'm understanding, believers in here, they put God first. So as I said before, you submit first to God. Then everything else will be worked out. Now, is it say that it's going to be perfect? No. Does it say that they're going to make mistakes? No. It don't say that. It says say fornication. That's it. People like to try to add.
But what I'm saying is this though, D. What I'm saying is this, bro. Like if you're submitting to God first, just as individuals, then your partner not being a good leader really ain't your business, right? If you submitting to God first and you doing what you're supposed to do, whether or not your partner is a good leader, that's between your partner and God. You supposed to continue to do what you're supposed to do. And if you find that you are not able to continue to do what you were supposed to do, you are supposed to get out of that situation. if y'all
Hey,
can't hold it
Rodney.
down.
Hey, I agree with
Hey,
you.
I'm gonna drop. I want to drop a bombshell, right? I just want to drop a
Okay, we
bombshell.
can finally hear rope. We can finally hear you, doctor.
Listen, you know why we think like that, Holly Rod? This is why we think like we should leave situations because the model we follow is dating, breaking up. When we're courting or whatever, our model is if things get rough, we break up. If the person that I'm with doesn't do what I want them to do, I don't believe that they're behaving how they should believe, we don't stick through situations. So if you do that in your dating life and you're constantly starting new relationships, right, then you're never practicing getting through tough times. As human beings, we're gonna make mistakes. That's how we're designed. I think it's important. Part of submitting is, and I said this earlier, and it might have got lost in the disconnection there. Submission also has a certain amount of power in it, right? Because in that submitting, you're saying, I'm giving way to your leadership. This puts a lot of pressure on the person leading, right? And as a follower, we don't always get to decide if the decision was right or wrong. My mom always said, "Dad makes the decisions. I reserve the right to say I told you so if he didn't follow what I suggested." And I think that's just how we should grow together. I think that's a perfect model. Hey, listen, you're leading. I'm going to follow. But if you're wrong and I told you you were going to be wrong from the beginning, don't be mad if I told you so. Right? And I think
Hello.
what happens I think a lot of times is we've grown up in a society that says, "Hey, if it gets hard, break up. If it gets hard, quit. If things don't go your way, leave." That's that's part of why we see the divorce
You
rates
know
we see.
what?
It's
You
not
know
that
what,
everything.
rope. I'm gonna chime in because I agree with you 1,000%. But that's why I give the caveat before I start talking about leaving the situation. I speak about laying in the bed that you made, right? I speak about because I'm more strongly rooted in that versus leaving the situation. Because you know me, nigga. I fuss at anybody that created a broken home. I don't give a fuck who fault it was. You was supposed to stay in that situation and work through it. You know that's how I feel about it, right? So I'm saying what I'm saying is the way that we kill that. The way that we bring balance to the divorce rate being so high. If it ain't working out, let's just break up. The way we bring balance to that is that we slow the fuck down. Stop rushing into these committed partnership situations with people to where we have to make a decision later and say, did I make the right decision? If we slow the fuck down and stop entering into these situations that are sometimes life changing, we having babies by people that we don't intend on being with forever. We entering into these partner relationships with people that we barely know. If we slow the fuck down, then we won't have to double back on our decision
Let me
later on.
let me ask you a question. How long does it take to gather somebody's habits and personalities and understand them? How long is that?
There's no black and white answer for that.
So then, how are you saying that they could be slower, faster? Do you see what I'm
because
getting at?
because 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 here's the thing. There's no black and white answer for that. But what I do also know is culture is
Mm.
that motherfuckers is not even having in-depth conversations with people, bro, before we busting nuts in them, bro. We not having in-depth conversations to find out if we equally yoked. So when
Right.
I say slow down, I mean slow down in terms of stop stop
Everything.
go- stop going to third base before you get to the first base, bro. Like I mean slow down in terms of, bro, we have to get to know these people on a real organic, holistic level before we start entering into these situations. Everybody in this chat room is guilty of the opposite. We all done rushed into situations that we shouldn't have done.
Facts.
So that's
Yeah,
what I mean when I say slow down, bro. Like I'll be honest with you, bro, and I'm gonna just put our business out here. When I first met my wife, some of the first conversations that we had, bro, were mind blowing conversations that most people don't have until they months, maybe even years, involved in some sort of a situation with a person. But for me, I came into that situation. I was older. I had made a whole lot of mistakes that I didn't want to make anymore. And so I came into this situation with her on an expedited timeline. Hey, look, I'm not fucking around. I'm looking for somebody to be my forever partner. And for that, we need to start in depth from the very fucking beginning. And I
But
didn't
that's
do
how
that
all
in any of my
relationships.
other
Facts.
relationships.
I agree
Facts.
with that.
But that's the model. Hey, I'm gonna say this. I have a 90-day rule, right? If 90 days, if I don't see that I had a 90-day rule. Let me correct my English. Um, if I don't see that we are on the same page in 90 days, there's no reason to waste each other's time, right? And I'm not saying that we can't be friends after the 90 days, but if in 90 days we haven't had those types of in-depth discussions, right, something's wrong. And just for
But
And
me,
my
if I,
thing, my
90
thing is
days,
with time though, I've always been for a very, very long time. I've believed that that whole saying about even the fact like time heals all wounds and the 90-day rule was just mentioned and rushing into things was just mentioned. Time is not about the length, short, long, we rushed, we waited. Time is about what you do in the time. So like
right.
to Rodney's point, if I meet you today and we go into in-depth conversations and we talk about finances, we talk about insurance, we talk about beliefs, we talk about what we want our future to look like, and we start that on day one, we could absolutely make a decision to be go to in a relationship whatever within 30 days, but for some people 30 days would be a rush, but it depends on what you do in the time.
Hello.
And that's
And I'm
and,
gonna
and
tell
that's
you,
what I
and
was
I'm
getting
let
at.
me
Come
let me say this just to speak to that, Nico. Within 90 days, me and my wife, we had moved into our first apartment together within 90 days. Within 90 days,
Exactly.
let me tell you, within 90 days, we was accelerated. Okay, because I
Yep,
didn't have time to fucking waste. So within 90
that's
days,
right.
some people might look at that and say, damn, within 90 days, y'all did this. You absolutely right, because we did more in-depth things versus those things that don't really have substance. We didn't rush into the sex and all of the toxic back and forth. No, listen, we established something from the very beginning that we was going to be able to create and build a foundation from. And from the beginning, like Nico said, we talked about insurance, we talked about family history, we talked about all of those things. I'm talking about within the first couple of weeks, because it was like, look, if you don't check off all of these boxes, I'm not wasting no more time.
And that's what I was really saying is me and my wife just said I knew within 30 days that I was gonna marry Monique. I knew in 30 days, right? Because of the type of conversations we were having, right? So I could project that because I seen the qualities. Now, it's gonna be bumps and roads. Hell yeah. I'm a human and I'm a flawed human. I'm flawed. Like don't like, and I think that's the thing that's important is to recognize going into these relationships, and women especially understand your man is flawed. Understand he's not going to make the right decision every single time. That does not mean his leadership is bad. That
on.
means he made a that means he made a bad decision in that case. There is billion-dollar companies where CEOs have made bad decisions and lost the company millions of dollars. Didn't mean he was a bad leader. I mean, they made a bad decision. Men are going to make bad decisions. It's going to be rough to follow us sometimes. It's going to be rough because some of us haven't learned all the tools we need to have to be good husbands or be good leaders. We haven't learned great communication skills. We haven't learned emotional maturity. We haven't learned uh, how to be delicate in situations. We model what we've learned, so we have a lot of relearning to do. That make us bad leaders. It just means we're going to make some mistakes. Now we need to correct them, but you need to be able to accept that we're going to make mistakes. And on the flip side of that, we have to learn that our women ain't always going to agree with us, and that it's okay that we have disagreements, but we can't be disagreeable with each other. And I think that's where it makes it submission easy. And when I was saying earlier, I submit to my wife when it comes to finances because she's better than me at it. And that's okay. So if she tells me, "Hey, B, I need you need to do this with this money this week," okay, because I'm trusting and I'm going to submit myself to her in that situation. Is there going to be mistakes? Yeah, she's made some mistakes, and I say, "Well, okay, we'll fix that." And I think that's just how we have to deal with those situations. We have to stop looking for perfect people. And I think that's that's part of we looking for perfect leadership. Like nobody can make a mistake in a leadership in the role, and that's ridiculous.
Can I ask y'all a question? I know it's kind of off topic, but it's sort of on the subject. Is there such thing as unconditional love? Because when it comes to submission, it there where I'm hearing is there's some conditions.
Ain't no such thing as unconditional love. God got unconditional love. That's it.
Oh, when you got children, you got unconditional love.
I disagree with that.
Me.
I think
Yeah, when you,
I think that you can love someone and not choose to be with them.
So you were, so
Oh
you're
wait,
with
hold
them
on.
before.
I think Dr. Roper's wife is speaking. Hold on.
Okay, so
I can't hear her if she's
JB,
talking.
She
can you
wasn't
unmute
speaking to
real quick?
us.
hello.
Yes.
Okay, so I heard that you can love someone and not be with them. So I get from that you were with them before. So with that, that means you're loving them differently. So I don't think that's unconditional because you left.
I just
Mm-mm.
don't
So
think that unconditional love
I
exists
don't believe
for
it
real
either,
people.
unless it's a kid. That's it.
In love somebody. The love of your children is not the same as loving your wife, even though
Right.
it's the same love, so to speak. Because I'm gonna tell you like this: if your children is just a bad seed, one of your children is a bad seed, you're gonna love them, but you're not gonna love them the same as the one that's not a bad seed. And just like you wouldn't love that good seed the same as you would love your wife. So like to me, there is no such thing as conditional love, unconditional love, like you said, Rob, as except for God. I have to agree with that.
Yeah.
There is a limit for people. You know what I mean? I'm perfect, just to be a little bit transparent, my older brother, his wife is leaving him because he literally just dogged her out. One story is she needed a cigarette. He took off with the cigarettes. And then when she finally got up the gall to go to the store after begging him, she walked to the store, and on the way back, this nigga drove past and drove right past her, didn't pick her up, did nothing, went right to the house while she walked the rest all the way home. So I'm sitting there thinking, like, what would possess a man to do that to his wife? It can't be love. You see what I'm saying? So when it comes to love, it's not even with submission. It's those two do come hand in hand. If you don't love your husband, ain't no wife go. She's not gonna respect you, and she's not gonna submit to you. And that love has to be that in love that I don't want that person away from me for the rest of my life. That's a different love.
I just think when I say it ain't no such thing, I think that all relationships, like partner relationships, I'm not talking about relationship with your children. But I think all other relationships have conditions to them. You're not going to continue to be with that person, be around that person if they're treating you with a certain lack of respect, certain lack of consideration, and that sort of thing. There's a bunch of conditions that we have between each other as adults, whether it's partners or friends, even family relationships, right? There's just no such thing as unconditional unless we're talking about God and possibly children.
I,
So,
I,
I
so,
I
so
think that's a very
I'll say
toxic way of thinking, right? Like
yeah, because I was gonna.
I don't feel like just because you choose to separate from being in the same living
Yeah,
condition as
yeah.
someone, that takes away love. And I think that mindset really basically tarnishes what love really is, right? It's kind of like a loyalty thing right? Let's say that I'm working for a company and I decide that I no longer want to work for that company because I want to follow my own dream. That doesn't mean that I want that company to fail. That doesn't mean that I don't want that company to succeed, that I don't believe in their vision. That just means that my purpose is better served somewhere else. So my
Right.
loyalty and my belief in them isn't gone. I'm just taking a different path, something that's better for me.
Yeah, but it
And
is
that's
in a sense. It is in a sense if you say that you in a relationship with somebody, you love that person. Like there's different levels of love, right? But when we are in a relationship with somebody, a partner relationship, um we want to be with them. If you lose the desire to want to be with them, then your love for that person has changed. Has it completely gone away? Maybe not, but your love has changed. There's some condition that no longer is true, and so now there's a circumstance that is no longer true. So that's what I mean when
no,
I
my
say condition. Condition based means there's a circumstance that this relationship is dependent upon. So if the dynamics of
how
that
about
relationship change, the dynamics of that relationship have changed because some other condition have changed.
I would say I would take the word condition out. I think that's a difficult word to do with. I think we should look at boundaries, right? If if you violate certain boundaries, it might change the nature of the relationship,
That's just
right?
wordplay
Like,
again,
hey,
though.
I
That's
have
wordplay again,
no,
though,
no, not
man.
really,
Because but
not really,
boundaries and conditions
not
mean the
really.
same
Hold on.
thing.
No, no, they don't.
You
Because
get
I have I have certain boundaries, right? And inside that boundary, right? I have a friend. I have a friend that's been my friend for 30 plus years. I still love him to death, right? He violated one of my boundaries, right? Now he can't never get. He's not back in that circle in that level of boundary anymore. But the love for him's not changed. It's just I have to put a certain protection on myself, right? So we protect ourselves by putting up boundaries, right? It doesn't change the love for that person unless you didn't really love them.
it did,
So
but the love has
can
been
you get back
changed.
to your
The
No, no,
love
boundary?
no,
has
no,
been
no.
changed. It's not the exact same as it was before a
Yes,
boundary was
yes, it is.
crossed.
Well, then, if
Yes, it
that's
is.
the case, all love changes.
Exactly. And that's
No,
why
I
But it
don't.
doesn't,
I
right?
don't
Right?
think that you
Not really.
define you. I don't think unconditional love can be defined as whether or not the love or the nature of the relationship changes. Like I
Relationship
don't.
stage. Right, right.
No,
I
that's what a
agree.
right?
condition is. A condition is the circumstance. A condition is based upon the dynamic. So if those dynamics change, they change because a condition changed within the dynamic of that relationship.
Okay, so let's look at it this way. Um, I don't know if I can break it any other way to how I view it. But if I love something, right, and because of who I am, I'm gonna use my background. I'm a Baptist, grew up Baptist, been in church my whole life. Love is patient, love is kind, love is long serving, love is not arrogant, and love is not puffed up. It's not love is not a lot of things that we think it is, right? I can be kind to you. I can be patient with you. I can be long suffering with you. It does not mean I'm inviting you on any cruises with me anymore. Why? Because the last time I invited you on a cruise, you got belligerently drunk and embarrassed me. All right. That does not mean that when we at home at the house that you ain't coming over because I still love you, but I know I can't do certain things with you. It's certain people I can't do certain things with. I don't love them any less. It's just a boundary right there. Hey, I'm not taking you to this because I know you're gonna act this way. I
So
still
so
love you.
there is a
I
condition then.
I think I
Like
think I
let's
think I
just use
think what's
That's
that
a
going
scenario.
on
boundary. I
is
think y'all got those two things mixed up. A
no, I
I'm
boundary and a
think
following
condition
what
it's
are
the
you're
other
not
way
the
saying.
same
around. I
thing.
Can I
think like when
say
you say
something? Can I say
Yeah. Go
something?
ahead. Go right on
Come on.
ahead.
Come
So
on.
I think
Mute them.
maybe a better way of phrasing that for Rodney is that the conditions of the relationship change. Those feelings of love and that adoration that you have for the person is it may still be there, but because certain circumstances happen, now the nature of our relationship has to change. And so the conditions may be placed on the relationship, but it's not placed on the emotion that is felt for that person.
that's
Yeah.
where I
Does it
disagree. I
stop?
think I
Yes.
think I think if the emotion is the same, then those conditions cannot change. Like if I
You
cannot
have to though
No.
if I
So
sometimes.
let's
cannot
talk
love this
about
person any
somebody who's
differently.
been in an abusive relationship. If somebody is harming them, causing physical harm to them, they may love that person to the depths of their soul. But at some point, they got to realize I got to love me more than I love this person, and I got to do what's best for me. And what's best for me means that I need to vacate this relationship or I'm going to get killed.
Yeah,
That
but
doesn't mean that
those are
I stop
always
loving that person.
easy examples. Like the abusive, the super extreme examples are
But
always
they're
super
still
easy to
sa-
say
they're still
that a person should leave. But what I'm speaking on is when the condition, when you change the dynamic of the relationship. Like, so if for instance, if you were in a relationship with somebody, y'all were sexually intimate, and now something has happened later down the line where you've set that boundary and you've taken that piece of intimacy away from y'all's relationship, then your love, your feelings for that person have changed. Have they went away completely? Maybe not, but they have changed. And that's
So,
what conditions are. Conditions
oh,
are a circumstance that can change the dynamic one way or the other. So it's like, I think that what we're doing is
no,
we're saying that when I'm doing something that, or I'm no longer doing something that I used to do in a relationship with somebody, that doesn't mean that I don't love them anymore. And I'm agreeing with that. But when you start to do things differently, or you start to set certain boundaries because of conditions, then that is the very definition of conditional. That is
no.
conditional.
I think that we ought to define condition, right? Like in this instance, condition, we're talking about a state of existence, a particular state of existence. And so that's what I mean when I hear unconditional love. I'm hearing that even if the dynamics of our relationship change, the fact that I love you, the fact that I care for you, the fact that I wish you well, the fact that I will pray for you, the fact that I want you to succeed, that will not go away. So
I
I
just
don't think that I'm saying the nature of my love isn't changing. I think I'm saying the existence of my love is not going to go away.
if I'm madly in love with a person, and then later in life I'm no longer madly in love with that person, and I've just reduced them to just a human being that I can be courteous and wish well wishes upon, that's a condition. Like, there's no way you can say that you went from completely head over heels to, hey, I wish this person well, I still wish the best for this person, so I still got love for him, and to say that those two levels of love are the same. They're
We're
not.
we're not we're not
no, no,
saying
no,
levels of love.
not the
But
same.
that's what condition is. Like condition is like, here, my relationship with you is this, and it's based upon conditions. If something in that relationship dynamic is taken away, then now my love for you is at a different level. That means that the level that it was at before was conditionally based upon some other circumstance. So if that circumstance is taken away and that made me react and say, okay, now I've set these boundaries. Now our dynamics of the relationship are different. That's a change. That's what a condition is. If there's a change, unconditional means no matter what change happens, the level of this dynamic stays the same. That's what unconditional means.
Definition of unconditional love, simply put, is to love without strings attached. It's love you offer freely. You don't base it on what someone does for you in return. You simply love them and want nothing more than their happiness. This type of love, sometimes called compassion or agape love, might sound somewhat familiar. Rodney,
I was
unconditional
literally
love
about
is
to
just
read
simply,
that.
I beat you to
You
it. But that's all
did.
it
I
is.
was
Hold up,
literally
hold up.
about to
Hey,
read that.
hey. So yeah, I agree with Roddy. I don't care what the fuck that said.
Yeah,
So
what do y'all
so
like? Do y'all know
But
what
that's why black
No,
men are
listen,
fucked
let
up,
me
hold
though.
give
up,
an
That's
hold
why
up,
we're
example.
fucked
Let me
up,
give an
though.
hold up.
example because
I
That's
got
the
a
why black
way
men are
question.
fucked
For the
Rodney
mirror
is the
game,
way that
I
Rodney
need
is
y'all to
saying it,
that.
I
I ain't
do
gonna lie.
agree with Rodney, like the way that he's saying it. I agree with Rodney. The only piece that I'm kind of trying to break down a little bit is the like definition of love though, because we're saying, like you said, there's a condition on the love. So if the love changes, I mean, if the condition changes, the love changes. So we're breaking down love like as it has these different levels. But I'm
Yeah,
thinking the way that we're talking about love
in Rodney's example, to me, is more attraction, it's more desire,
Come
it's
on.
more, so not what love actually means. You do still keep that love, even if your circumstance might change. And again, even if Rodney is saying it's a different level of love, that's still love. So
Exactly.
you are still loving someone. It may be at a different level, but as long as it's still
Yeah, but let
love,
me just
that
agree with
does
thoughts outside of
mean
love.
we can love people unconditionally because
It is
we're not
now.
expecting anything from them. There's no strings attached, there's no attraction, there's no desire, and I just simply love you. That's the love of God. And so we are
I
we
just,
are
I
to be
just,
Christ-like. We
I
are to
just,
be
So
I
Christ-like,
don't
and
so
think.
like
hold up. So all these grown motherfuckers in here, y'all are telling me out of all the people y'all love in y'all life, y'all haven't treated them differently because they did something to y'all.
Exactly.
That's not
Not the
that's
ones I
not what we're
love. Not the
saying.
not the ones I've loved
Hey,
unconditionally.
Okay,
There's some
so then
people that
I'll
I
say
don't love
another one.
hold up.
unconditionally.
Let me
There's some people that I
speak
put
to
some
my
very
men. Let me
strict
speak to my
conditions
men.
on.
B, hold up. Let me speak to my men, married men. And I know, Rodney, you got your wife on here, so you can bow out. Your wife ain't fucked you in about a month. You ain't looking at her funny. You don't feel differently about her.
he still
No, I
loves
don't.
her.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
not even a good example. He still
Okay,
loves
so
How
her.
not?
look, so
But he looking at
let
me
me
different and he looking at other people different too.
look, let me.
Exactly, but he still loves
That
her.
right.
Okay, so look, let me.
Hello.
So wait, let me give another example then. Let me give another example, and let's see if this brings y'all back down to earth. So y'all telling me that anybody that you ever was in a relationship with that you loved, you still love them.
Yes.
Still love
Yes.
them, but differently.
Yes.
Pray
There
for them,
is
hold
still
the faith
love for
So
them.
wait a
successfully,
minute. So
hope
Hold
wait
that
a
they
up.
get
minute,
Hey,
blessed.
princess,
hold
Don't
up.
want them
Where
princess.
Janine
hurt.
at? Janine. This is what Janine was talking about earlier. She's we not gonna agree. So let's just buy out.
Look, and I'm up here thinking to
Let-
myself, hell no.
let's just take a
Exactly.
step back.
So
Let's
okay.
take a
So
step
wait,
back.
wait,
Pray
wait.
for
So here
y'all.
I'm asking that. I'm asking that because
Y'all,
the
we are not
Bible
capable of
says,
unconditional love as human beings. Period. We're not capable of it.
Yeah,
I don't. Y'all lying to yourself because
yeah.
we are just because of how we're made. We're not capable of it.
Like here's the
Now,
thing. So the Bible says that true love never dies. So if true love never dies, if you ever truly love somebody, like right now I'm married, then that means that I still love all of my ex-girlfriends. And you telling
That's what
me,
I'm saying. It's not in
Not
love. It's
all
not an
of them.
no, no,
attraction. It's
no,
not
we
a
ain't talking about in
Exactly.
desire.
love. We ain't talking about in love. Y'all ain't said nothing. Y'all done read definitions to me. Ain't nothing in there reference to in love. It just said love. Love of
But
another
that's how
person.
you're presenting it, Rodney.
No,
You're
I'm not. I'm
presenting it like,
presenting. I'm
if
presenting.
I
I'm
love
presenting
this
it just
Okay.
at face
person,
value. I'm presenting it just at face value.
yeah.
I'm
So
saying right now, if I
third
got on
level
here
of
right
love.
now and I said I still love every one of my ex girlfriends, you
Right.
telling me there ain't nothing wrong with that line of thinking?
you
No.
can love them as a person and you can
You
want the best for
can.
them.
Hey,
You
okay, Ronnie.
absolutely
Listen,
Okay,
can
Holly.
love every
Holly.
single ex you've ever been
I,
with.
I, I,
Holly.
Princess, you better
Rodney,
not be
can
still.
I
You better
play
not
devil's
still love
advocate?
none of your exes, Princess.
Hey,
I don't
Rodney,
care.
let me
See, that's
let
coming
me
from your
Holly.
own personal
hey,
place.
that's hey,
let
and
me
she
let me
better
play
submit and listen to it.
let me play devil's advocate. With this is basically what they're saying, Rodney. I agree with you and JB. And I don't have no love for none of my exes. If they passed away, I promise you I wouldn't shed a tear. Uh
Hello.
Now,
Y'all,
as far as
that's
far as
deep.
far as far as the love that I think that they're talking about is literally, saying like, look, we hope that they didn't die in their sins. That's about
I ain't got that love for none of them. I'm gonna tell you
but
right
that
now.
about be about the lowest level of love that you, because it sounds like there's more than one level. Because when I read the Bible, there's two levels of love in the Greek. Agape is the highest. I forget what the second one is, but it's two of them. So when it comes to that, it seems like that. Like I'm sorry, like I have to agree with JB and Rodney, but at the same time, I do understand where they're coming from.
Cool beans.
Yeah,
Next
I
question.
think that's
Look,
also
what we got?
I think that's also a male female thing because again, for those
Yeah.
who do read the Bible, if you really inspect the instruction that's given to how wives should treat their husbands and husbands should treat their wives, the Bible don't ever tell no wife to love her husband, but the Bible tells a husband to love his wife. So
Well,
I do think that there are
it's,
just certain like right, just
man,
like the
it's like,
Bible don't ever tell a man to submit to his wife, but it tell wives to submit to their husbands. It don't mean that husbands shouldn't be submissive. I think that it's just speaking to those commonalities in our I guess beliefs or behaviors that we have to check ourselves about.
so when it comes, you said that it says that the man is to love his wife, but it doesn't say that the wife to love it. It does say that the wife is to love the husband too. I can find it, but I ain't about to go through that part yet. But where I'm getting at is this: is when it comes to love, when it comes to men, the number one thing for us is respect. And that is the number one thing that women do not give. So that's where the actual thorn in the side of our relationships is because whenever y'all get mad, because they always say show a person who they are by getting them mad. When y'all get mad, y'all get so goddamn disrespectful, it does not make no sense. And the thing
Uh-oh.
is this is when it's become men, the reason why we show such respect is because of aggression. If you disrespect another man, he's gonna knock your goddamn teeth out. And a man cannot do that to his woman. So what do we end up doing? We end up disrespecting you. Now you all kind of bitches and hoes because I can't knock your motherfucking ass out for the disrespect.
You
So,
could, but you love her.
So, so,
but you,
so,
you
so
love
real
her,
quick,
yeah.
Donald,
Do you see what
about the
I'm saying?
Bible, I believe you're thinking of Titus, where it tells the older women to teach their wives to love their husbands. It's not telling wives to love their husbands, but it's more talking about how to demonstrate that love. But the point is, like, I believe that there are just commonalities in terms of how men are typically going to think or how their emotions are going to be similar with women because we're different. I'm not gonna speak on the how women get so disrespectful when we mad because men do the same thing. Men can be disrespectful without cause because your hormones is going crazy
Very
because
true,
you ain't
very
got
true,
some in a minute. So
very true.
we that's really feeding into my point is that we all kind of, if I might come up with my own term, it's like gender type curses, right? Generational instead of generational. Generational curses are a thing. And we have to
Wait,
check
you said
ourselves. And I
what?
just think this whole
Race?
concept,
Wait. Say
Gender
about to
racial.
just
Okay,
pass
okay.
me
Gender
up.
you
racial.
know, it's a thing. If I were to,
Okay.
create my own term, I'm sure my husband is over there cringing because he hate when people try to come up with new words. But
I just
that's
don't
just
want nobody to steal that
Yeah,
shit up in here,
yeah,
babe. Damn.
yeah. 'Cause I was like, wait a minute, what gender? Wait, what was the
That's what
word?
I'm
too
like. You
late,
heard it first
too
here. Don't
late,
play. That's
too late.
her. Nope. Don't play.
Wait,
That's
what's the word
hers.
again? Gender what?
Gender
Nope.
racial.
Nope. Don't
Gender
repeat
racial.
it. Trademark that, princess. Don't you give it
Thing.
away.
It's a
Hashtag
thing.
generational. I got you.
It's a
No.
real thing. That's all I'm saying. It's a real thing. Oh,
But
y'all.
now you're right. You know what I mean? We can't put the all the mountaintop on the women. Now men are we they some sassy ass niggas out there. Them niggas is emotional.
So
You
let
know
me
what I
let
mean?
me say
Like,
something
Are they
about.
house niggas or field niggas?
hey, both
Mm.
of them probably.
Can I say something?
Uh huh.
So I agree with. I'm not sure. Was that Donald that was just speaking about women being disrespectful?
Yes.
So I think what, and really the whole thing about relationships in general, and I had to be taught this, my husband had to be taught this, is that when you are in a committed relationship, that y'all supposed to be teammates. Y'all supposed to be on the same team. And you got to learn how to fight fair. So the question is
Woo.
how do we learn that if that's not what we've grown up with or that's not what we've been shown or taught?
Counseling.
Fortunately, we were able to have people in our lives through our church that taught us that, because we would have fallen into that same curse, um and maybe even intentionally knowing that, because I one time, this was early in our relationship, my husband said I called him a punk ass nigga for something, and he told me that that was just like me him calling me a bitch. That was equivalent to that, and
Oh my
how
God.
disrespectful that was.
Indeed.
And
Yeah.
so so after that,
Ooh,
I've never called him that again.
hold on.
So
He said
when
it
we
that calmly to you?
he did.
Oh
He
man.
did. He
Oh
did.
yeah,
Oh
you
man.
got you. Hey,
Y'all
you got
y'all
you a keeper.
Oh,
boy,
well, yeah, we've been married 26 years now.
go on
That's
ahead.
my
So,
role
but
model.
we've had to have instruction and coaching from people, really, for again, from our church, and who have been married years longer than us, would help us out and talk to us about how we needed to treat each other. And so that's the key to how we've stayed together, was that it was based on biblical principles, because left to our own devices, we wouldn't be together. And he knows that, I know that, like, it's no doubt in our minds about that. So how do we learn that? Like I said, we were fortunate enough, but everybody don't have that.
Well, I mean, it's that's where it starts at. Honestly, like when it comes about biblical principles, it speaks about how a woman actually is supposed to come to a man. Like it's all in there. Like it now that somebody play devil's advocate. Somebody said, "Well, what if they don't, do that? They don't believe in that." Okay, I get that part. Then you probably shouldn't even be married to that person. So you kind of excommunicate that on out of there, if that makes sense. Because unequally yoked just means unequally yoked, just as it is, But when it comes to the start of it, you have to start with the respect with one another. And like you said, when you told him that was disrespectful, you never did it again. Now, I have to be totally honest with you. People, creatures of habit. So I guarantee you, even if you didn't say it to him, you said it under your breath. It just slipped out again. Like that, you know what I mean? So I get what y'all saying, but I'm a have to agree with you on that totally on that. What you saying, I appreciate that. I'm gonna receive that. I'm gonna put that in my pocket, and I'm gonna make sure that even if she gets disrespectful, I won't be disrespectful.
I think what jumped out to me, what Miss Adrian said, was changing our mindset to understand that we are a team.
Hmm.
When you enter into a relationship with somebody, that's you choosing partnership with that person. So if you can look at it from a business sense, right? You two have entered into partnership with each other, and so you're dependent on your success is dependent upon one another, and I think that one of the things that we can easily change is our mindset in terms of relationship. Instead of us going into relationships in competition with one another, in sort of that power struggle, that power dynamic, that power play, we're a team. So there's going to be times where, as a team, we're submitting or following what my decisions are going to be, and there's times where those decisions that we follow are going to be rooted in your decisions, right? So I think that us kind of getting into the mind frame that when we enter into these situations with people, that should be a team effort. The other piece that Miss Adrian said was, how do we learn that when everybody doesn't have access to those same tribal dynamics? I think that spaces like this, us having conversations like what we're doing tonight is helpful, should be helpful for the community. I know me personally, every time we had these conversations, even when I do tune in to the sisters and the brothers are not able to get on the mic, I'm always learning some things, some different perspective. Even when I'm, being debatable and argumentative with certain perspectives, I do walk away from these with a new outlook on certain things. So I think that spaces like these are extremely important, and I give everybody here, I give everybody their kudos and their flowers for kind of taking these steps to have dialogues like this.
Yes.
For
Yes.
sure.
Hey y'all, so something I've been thinking about. So I've been married 19 years, and my wife and I have never had this conversation about submissiveness. Like,
Mm.
it's
Oh.
it's really what Rodney said is organic. I mean,
Mm.
because I never. So let's start it from here. So as a man myself, uh, I wasn't prepared to be married. When I got married, I was not ready to be married. Um, and it's simply because of expectations I wasn't aware of, but also a maturity level. So, so with that, in terms of going into it, and I can't say if I'm speaking for all men. I know I've spoken to some men about this, and I've had a consensus about it. But think about just the difference between men and women, how we grow up. I guarantee it's not one man in here that like has played wedding and thought about how he would look in his tux waiting on his wife to walk down the aisle. However, most women, that's what they think about. Like they've thought about it before. And once again, I don't want to speak for y'all, but if y'all could, chime in on that. But just being
Nah,
prepared to be in that situation,
nah, I have it, and
like
even now, what I mean, I did a courthouse marriage, what I mean, because we wasn't about to play, but we're gonna do the wedding, because she want to. You see what I'm saying?
yeah.
It's gonna be her colors, it's gonna be her theme, it's gonna be her whole idea. You see what I'm saying? As far as
It's
how,
the bride's day. It's the bride's day.
yeah,
So walking into that, bro. Just in stepping into that type of relationship in terms of like the wealth of expectations coming in from the wife side versus the male side. Because once again, like I didn't grow up in the church. I went to church sometimes. My parents weren't religious, so I didn't get that until after I got married, and and mainly because of my wife. Like I started going to church and reading the Bible and stuff because of her, and learning what Dr. Roper was talking about, just in terms of what love is according to the Bible, in terms of not being boastful and all that. So it was definitely a learning curve for me. And stepping into the marriage, I never thought, hey, I'm the leader here. I never thought that. It just grew organically to the point where, like he said, it's some things she's better at than me. Like I told you already, I submit to my wife every day. It's just some things like I ask her opinion about everything because she thinks about it differently than I do. So um so just understanding as men and growing into that leadership role, to be able to have somebody to submit to is it's a growing, it's a learning curve. It's something we grow into. So I can't say, hey, I'm married, submit to me now. Like I'm not like I was damn near still living single after I get married. I just didn't know, y'all. So any of y'all, so Dr. Roper, you grew up in a church. So can you talk about that? Like just in terms of and getting married, and like was it a factor where you had to grow to for her to step into that submissive role to be comfortable with you, or
I
was
think
it
Dr.
just
Roper.
there?
I think Dr. Roper had to
Damn.
leave.
gone.
Damn.
Hey, but hey, I can actually speak to that, bro, because I grew up in
Help on.
Baptist church,
Okay.
all that.
Right on.
And to me, I grew up old school. Hollywood. He know my parents, bro. They was old. You know what I mean? So they was married before I was born. So you know, and they never stopped. You know what I mean? They stayed married all the way till death, both of them. So it does give you that good foundation You know what I mean? It does, but me personally, I didn't learn the truth until I was grown. You see what I'm saying? There was a little bit of truth that they told us, but they told a whole lot of lies, but that's another story. But when it came to, understanding, the principles, yes, it was very easy, for me to find that. And what's beautiful about it is that my wife did that on her own. I didn't teach her. You see what I'm saying? She's able, she's able to tell me and learn me things that I never understood until she spoke it to me. So I get what you're saying. But the thing is following those principles. It doesn't matter whether or not you grew up in church or whether or not you got it later. The fact that you got it now.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Can I? So I want to, I guess, add to that from my perspective. What I've seen in my husband was that we both came into our relationship really not having good examples of what a marriage was supposed to look like, and so we came in with these fairy tale ideas, and they didn't match up. And so he did have to learn how to grow in his leadership. He had to learn how to grow in being a teammate. So that all required, since we talking about submissiveness, that required me to take a seat beside him and not try to run with him, so that he could learn those lessons and so that he could grow to be the man that God called him to be in terms of leading our household. So I think that that is part of your, I'm gonna call it a hero's journey that men have to go through in general. It's part of you learning who you are as a man and as a person, but then you add that other layer to it, Mary, that you have to figure out what that means in terms of your leadership as the husband and of your household. So I don't think that I think that's a human thing, a man thing from the men that I know who've been married for any period of time.
And you know what stood out was you sat down beside him and allowed him to do that. And a lot of women, oh, you don't got that leadership skill yet? I'm gonna take over. I'm gonna go ahead and do it. Oh, but you don't know how to do this, so I'm gonna do it.
Oh,
Come on.
Instead of
that took
sitting
coach.
down beside them
Yes,
and letting them,
that took coaching. I said in a previous
yeah,
episode how one of our married couple friends, I think they may have been married maybe 10 years more than us. But she told me, she's like, sis, you need to stop competing with your husband and let him be the man. And that was like a
hmm
slap in my face, like, what you mean? Compete. I'm not
Mm.
competing with him. So she gave me examples of how I had been, and I had to take a step back and look like, dang, I did do that, and I did that. And so,
yeah.
yeah. I- So I had somebody had to tell me that. Somebody had to bring it to my attention. Cause I didn't see nothing wrong with what I was doing. I was being a strong black woman.
You know,
No, don't start
one
that.
of the things that I think is important for us to promote and deliver as far as messaging is how much power and strength there is in doing that as a woman and being able to take a seat beside a man,
Yep.
knowing that he's driving down a one-way street, and being able to let him make those necessary mistakes that will will contribute to, as Miss Adrian put it, his hero's journey. I can speak personally. I learn every day. I've been married for 2 years. I continue to learn daily. I keep myself surrounded by men that I can learn from, surrounded by women that I can learn from, and there are going to be mistakes that continue to be made. But as a woman, as a wife, when you're able to actually take a seat, and allow that man to grow into that role, there's a lot of power and strength in that, and I think that should be, and that's important for us not to lose sight of.
Yes, yes. In episode 2,
Yeah, that was
Adrian
nice.
said exactly that. There is so much power and strength that it takes to really be more supportive, right? To really not become overbearing, to nurture. To nurture takes power, it takes a strength in a different type of way than the rest of the world likes to pour it out and even think about it. And I love that she said that. And I have been learning from that statement for the past 3 months. As my husband just said, we've been married for 2 years. We've been together for, oh, what's it, 11 years now? 11 years that we've been together. But the marriage is different. The marriage is different.
Woo. Say that again.
That commitment, the vows, the real establishments, and settling into roles for the purpose of building out legacy. There's just no comparison to being in a casual commitment, which is what I'm going to call, relationships that's not a contractual or a spiritual vow. It's different. And it's been such a steep learning journey, even though I felt like at the time where I got married to my husband that I knew him better than anybody else on the face of the planet after having been with him for 9 years. There's still so much of him that I have to learn, so many parts of him that I feel like I'm nurturing to help him show the rest of the world, right? There's so many layers to him that the world deserves to see from him as a leader, and I have to learn how to support him in bringing that out while being submissive and not feeling like can take over and just fix something and make something right, which is difficult for me. I'm a mathematician by trade, so problem solving is what I do. But I've come to learn that there is so much power, and I dare even say miraculous work that comes from being
Yes.
able to be submissive and nurturing someone into their calling. And so, if I don't leave you all with anything else, I dare say try to explore the real power of being submissive and the real miracles that you can work by nurturing someone to where they need to be, by nurturing someone through to their vision. Someone else made a comment, I think it might have been Mr. JB, who said, "What about those people who believe that the Bible is BS?" My response to that is that every human lives by a code. And so if you don't believe in the Bible and you don't believe in the word, I dare you to explore what code you are living by, because we all are answering to something. And if you don't know that answer, I challenge you to not be necessarily a church person, because man is always going to be fallible. But try the word, try Jesus, because that will not be fallible. It won't. It won't. Submit to that. We all submit to some principles. I challenge you to explore yours. Well, y'all, my soul and my heart is very edified from the testimonies, from the insights, from the wisdom, from the healthy disagreement. And I just thank God for this platform. I thank God for this tribe and this community, for you all showing up, and know that I really am praying for all of you in your healing. I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up as we had a very strong 2 hours here. For everyone who is tuning in, be sure to watch all of the episodes. This was the eighth one that we just unpacked, so go check them out. Subscribe to our Spotify. The link is here in the clubhouse. Subscribe to our YouTube. Be a part of the movement. Don't forget to check out our healing collection on AngelaMariePublishing.com. And please support all of the panelists. We have entrepreneurs, we have therapists, we have strong, wise people. So be sure to follow them, check them out, and catch us on the couch next week when the brothers is going to be bringing some more knowledge and important conversations for the
Oh,
community.
princess.
Yes, yes.
Next week we actually gonna be
Oh,
back
it's
here
got
on
griefing.
Clubhouse for griefing.
Right. Next week is griefing. Oh my gosh. Well, y'all, Tune in to the other 8 episodes. But next Thursday, be back on Clubhouse for griefing so that we can say prayers for those who are dealing with transitions in their family and so that we can honor the legacies of those who are no longer here. Until then, I hope we all heal. Much love, and good night.
All right, good night, y'all. Appreciate it.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. This was great.
Good night.
Yes, sir.